Hi everybody. Today I'm going to be talking about the anti-BDS movement that's going on in our country today. And so let's get into it. The issue that is the anti-BDS movement is that the process of the United States is undergoing to make it illegal to be anti-Israeli. With some background to that, basically the Israeli-Palestinian conflict that's going on, and how we are so pro-Israeli as a nation that they're making it illegal for us to be pro-Palestinian in any way, shape, or form. So just as an intro, we have all heard of the suffrage movement, all Black Lives Matter, the Me Too movements, and something that they've all had in common is the freedom to speak about these issues and the freedom of speech. And so I've been a fighter for the BDS movement, which stands for boycott, divestment, sanctions. This is a movement that goes on within universities, and it's basically a global movement. University of Irvine has been huge with this, Berkeley, LA. It's just a huge overall movement in universities with younger students. So it's really important to know what is going on because a lot of people don't. And it's basically a huge infringement on our freedom of speech and our right to choose and our Bill of Rights, basically. So we do want to keep exercising our freedom of speech, whether that be with gun violence or anything that you guys feel passionately about. So this is basically hurting that if they can take away this choice of freedom of speech, then what else can they take away from us? So I will be speaking about the right of freedom of speech as well as the problems they're facing, and how it affects all American citizens as a whole. So you're probably wondering, BDS, who cares? Why do we care about this? So some facts that I've put together would be, according to BDSmovement.net, Israel is occupying and colonizing Palestinian land, discriminating against Palestinian citizens of Israel, and denying Palestinians refugees the right to return to their homes. Inspired by the South African anti-apartheid movement, the BDS call urges actions to pressure Israel to comply with international law. And to kind of help give a better understanding of what this all means is that this movement is basically trying to put pressure on Israel to obey the human rights laws that were set by the United Nations, and they're currently breaking it, but no one's saying anything. And this movement helps us all as a global effort to kind of come together and fight this and for the greater good and not kind of stay silent with it all. So some of the lists of companies that I have found that support Israel, just the smallest, there's so many, would be Pampers, Victoria's Secret, Volvo, Intel, Tribe, Sabra Hummus, Motorola, HP, Ahava, McDonald's, SodaStream. There's so many others. And you're probably wondering why are we boycotting these products if they're American brands but they support Israel? So basically these brands give a percentage of their direct income to the Israeli conflict and basically aiding them in occupying a land that's not theirs. So according to the FAS, at a signing ceremony at the State Department on September 14th, 2016, representatives of the United States and Israeli government signed a new 10-year Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, on military aid for covering basically 2019 to 2028. Under the terms of MOU, the United States pledges to provide $38 billion in military aid, $33 billion in foreign military financing grants, plus $5 million in missile defense to Israel. This MOU replaces a previous $30 billion 10-year agreement that's was supposed to end in 2018. So we're actually giving them $38 billion for defense and all this stuff against a nation who gets no aid and no help from anyone. I mean, we used to get some aid. The we were given $60 million annual funds for the Palestinian security, which has now ended because Israeli backed some previous cuts for U.S. aid in Palestine. That was according to BBC. So we're like, you can see the huge gap in how they're treating them. And this is a huge deal. It's a worldwide issue. I mean, we're literally facing budget cuts in our education system, but we're able to give $38 billion to a foreign country to fight a war that has nothing to do with the United States. Like, that should anger anyone. Okay? And so basically Obama, our previous president, he was the one who kind of kept the, $60 million aid that Palestine was getting, but Trump just cut it all out altogether. So this is a huge deal and a worldwide issue because this is occurring the BDS movement being blackballed and the United States being cut aid by Trump within the span of a year. So basically what they're doing with the anti-BDS is, if you are a Palestinian business owner and you are vocally pro-Palestinian and you vocally donate money to Palestine, you can risk being fined or harassed or blackballed from the whole industry as a whole. So like those big companies, like if Victoria's Secret decided to be pro-Palestinian, they can risk not having certain models in their show every year. They can risk losing customers, losing investors, being like basically like cut from like the fashion industry as a whole. So this proposal came as a package deal to create many laws concerning the Middle East, which was presented to Congress and Senate. So the Lay 4 blog states, on February 5th, the Senate passed a package of Middle East policy bills, including the Combating BDS Act of 2019. The act, which would affect laws on the books in 26 states, that prevent state and local governments from doing business with entities that boycott Israel. It has regulated debate over whether lawmakers' effort to stem the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement against Israel violate the First Amendment. This post examines the bill passed by the Senate and tracks ongoing litigation against state anti-BDS in federal court. So this is basically creating laws about who we can and cannot do business with in America. Nothing to do with Israel, nothing like that. It has something like, if you're born and raised in America, this is affecting you. So here's a little example. If it's kind of hard to understand, so here's a little bit of an example. So we could not do business with a Palestinian company that supports the Palestinian people, but we can do business with a company that supports and funds Israel. It seems kind of crazy that they're telling us who we can and cannot support, and it's like a huge infringement on our freedom of speech. So all those businesses like that I named, like Pampers, Victoria's Secret, HP, Volvo, those businesses are basically funding missiles being thrown at Gaza, children being taken to jail for throwing rocks at a tank, bullets being thrown at innocent boys and men and women in the streets. If this does not anger you, I don't know what will. I mean, whether you are on either side, this whole thing is kind of like, it doesn't make sense. Why do we have to give them so much money? And why are they making it illegal for you to be vocal? Because that, obviously, if you're making it illegal to be vocal about something, obviously there's something kind of shady within it all. So kind of like to end this all up, I kind of wanted to give everyone like an idea of what they can do, whether or not they are for this idea or for anti-BDS. You can, with any issue you want, there's always talking to your local senators or congress people. There's Julia Brownlee, there's Henry Stern. This is just like Black Lives Matter, Me Too movement, gun reform, all this stuff. And it doesn't matter where you come from. It's just all basically wanting equal and freedom to speak and say whatever you please. So that's basically anti-BDS, and I just wanted to kind of show everyone that what's going on in our nation today. Thank you.